Hey, everybody. Hope you're all doing well out there. It's great to see you. Hey, what an amazing week it's been, huh? We're just rocking and rolling with the shows. We're going balls to the wall with the shows. And so tonight we have a very special episode. Got Eric Galati coming in, and we are going to be talking about the Fred Degal tape. Yes, who's Fred Degal? Well, quite honestly, none of us had any clue who this guy Fred Degal is or was until these Queen's DA recordings came out. And well, Fred Degal doesn't really seem to be that much of a person of interest in terms of Son of Sam. However, where the Fred Degal tape gets very interesting for us as Son of Sam researchers is because of the he said, she said back and forth between good old Fred and of course the protagonist of our story, one of our protagonists of our story, Wheat Carr. So anyhow, hope everyone's doing well. Listen, the simple fact is we're all yentas out here. We all love a good he said, she said story. And those of us in true crime, again, we're yentas. We just love to gossip. We love all this stuff. So in either case, my friends, we have the ultimate in gossip today. So listen, no reason for any flowery other intros. I don't have any other major announcements to make. Why don't we just get right into it, guys? So without further ado, you all know him and you all love him, the one of the only Eric Galati.
Hey,
Eric.
good afternoon, everybody. And in Europe, good evening. This is going to be a hell of a show.
It's going to
Manny,
be...
since you began in March of 2021, before the spring, it was still winter, I've never come across a show where we're going to have two definitive opposing stories about
Yes.
each other and other factors. Never before. So everybody, don't just hear, please listen, because even if you've heard these tapes that are on the archives, we're going to be going back to sections that Wheat said about topics that Fred Degal mentions. So I just do want to say one thing quickly. Fred Degal, first place, you are, if you're listening in, you are Mrs. Wheat Carr, Wheat. But for the sake of history at this time, historically, you are referred to as Mrs. Wheat McCabe Carr. So I know you're Mrs. Wheat Carr, but it's Mrs. Wheat McCabe Carr. They refer to you as that. And the other thing is this. Well, that's actually on your tape. But the other thing is this, is that Degal has a way of speaking that's very crude and even filthy. I would never say it has no place, but maybe they were looking for something about people's. It has no place the way he described you. So
Now you're talking to Wheat now. You're
yeah, I'm
speaking
talking
directly to
to
Wheat.
right now.
Okay.
I'm talking directly to you, Wheat, if you're listening in. It's very filthy, and a man should not even speak about a woman like this, even if it were to be true. And if it were to be true, the way he describes it is wrong. So nobody is in agreement with this, and we don't know what the truth is, though, to be objective. Believe me, everybody's going to hear two contradictory statements about a number of topics, completely different, completely different. This is not similarities, completely different.
Exactly. I mean, and therein lies the interest. Now, I am not going to make any judgments. I want to put the default category right out there in the beginning of this tape and of course video, and of course I'll probably say it at the end again. We are just examining the he said and she said. I am not going to make any judgments as to who is lying and who's telling the truth. Why? Because I don't know who's lying and who's telling the truth. That's not for me to judge. That's for us to judge as listeners, as human beings, as people interested in the case. I'm not going to try to tell you who I think is telling the truth, who you think is telling the truth. The simple fact is we have a he said, she said story, and we're going to analyze it. Now, I also want to give the default announcement that we are not making any judgments on guilt either. Okay. Wheat makes accusations against Fred. Fred makes accusations against Wheat. That we're just letting these two people talk, and we're not even refereeing. We're just sitting back and observing, like the true crime yentas that we all are. Okay, in our hearts.
Yenta is
It's like a busybody, like a Jewish.
right.
It's like a Jewish name for like like a
Eavesdropper, busybody, the widow
eavesdropper, right?
behind the curtain.
Correct.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Professor Hamamoto, this is your dream. You brought up the film Rashomon, which is about a man accused of guilt, and there's 4 witnesses, and you could never decide who's telling the truth. And that Japanese term Rashomon entered into criminology. So this is a Rashomon. This, believe me, Manny, you've never had a show like this of opposing factions.
Exactly. And why don't we just get into it, because we have a lot to listen to. And listen, what we've done is we have both tapes up. So at certain points we're going to stop and comment, obviously, but at certain points we're going to stop, and when we hear an accusation made by one, we're going to hear the other story made by the other.
A certain topic is spoken of, I'm going to say, okay, Manny, this is the minute.
Right, and then I'll go find what Wheat had to say. So you guys, so we're gonna hear it both together. Anyway, strap yourselves in, smoke a joint, drop a tab of acid, whatever you got to do. We're gonna be here for a little while. Drink a little wine, enjoy yourselves. We're gonna be here doing our Son of Sam thing. So without further ado, let's just get right into Freddie Degal. Now, real quick, obviously, if the audio is messed up or too loud or too low, please put it in the chat.
Title?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Today is October 29th, 1979. It is now 6:35 p.m. We're at 220 Pelham Road, New Rochelle, in the apartment 3G. We're interviewing Fred Degal. That's it.
Okay. Where do you want me to begin?
Start again, where, as you were indicating, you were doing construction work
I was doing a renovation and restoration in the Carr home, in a room that would be involved with the mother's answering service, Mrs. Carr's answering service. And I had part of that room completely taken away. It was in that room that I heard the first shot fired. I heard a total of 3 shots. And you'll have to give me a little leeway there. I'm positive. At this.
Okay, now he's talking here about the shooting of Harvey Carr, which is something that Mike Lorenzo and I analyzed very, very deeply with the police reports, and also we did a walk and talk right behind the Carr house, which you guys can go check out. A lot of what Fred is saying about the Harvey Carr shooting actually checked out, like not checked out, but Lorenzo surmised through his experience, and he was actually pretty surprised how accurate he was. Lorenzo was.
At this point, I'm positive it was 3 shots, but it's also 2 years ago. I heard the dog howl. When I ran out to the side of the house, I saw a man on the aqueduct running northbound up the aqueduct.
Okay, northbound up the aqueduct. Sorry, Eric, but this is stuff that's dear to my heart. Well, because I'm stopping at the end of like 30 seconds here, but I got to talk about this. So running up,
they coincide. Wheat and Fred coincide about the shots.
Oh, they do?
And in the sense that it's not a 44 caliber.
Well, right. It turned out that it was probably a 45. I think that's the bullet that they recovered, or a 22. But right here, what he's saying, it actually backs up the police report of Sam Carr saying that he saw someone running northbound on the aqueduct. Let's get back to it.
All right. All I noticed about him, to the best of my recollection, is that he was wearing a light blue shirt and that he was white. All right. I did not pursue him.
Wait a second.
And then
light blue shirt and he was white. Okay, so that actually coincides with what Sam Carr said. The witness, Sam Carr, said he saw the guy running north wearing a blue denim jacket of some sort. So far, Degal and Carr are in agreement. North wearing
there's a
blue.
difference though of a denim blue and a light blue shirt.
There is, but
And the light blue shirt makes me think of yesterday's show when we saw
the gray
the
shirts.
gray or the bluish gray, almost white shirts of David Berkowitz.
Right, but the thing what if it was a worn out denim jacket? It could be much lighter in color.
Could also
Anyway,
be that.
blue is the issue here, though.
Mhm.
Sam Carr and Fred Degal are both seeing blue.
At that point, I attended to the animal.
Okay. What kind of shape was the animal in?
The animal was laying there licking the wounds.
That's a dog Harvey,
The dog Harvey,
black
a
Labrador.
black Labrador. At that time, I guess he was about a year old. Okay, he was a very friendly pup. You know, he was as any Labrador puppy would be. They felt they took good care of him, but you know, they ignored him most of the time, and they left him tied out in the backyard. He was a noisy dog.
All right. Well, they ignored him most of the time. They left him tied up in the backyard, and he was a noisy dog. So that coincides with what Berkowitz wrote in his letters. You keep your dog tied up to the back all the time. So far it's pretty accurate. What do you think, Eric?
Yes, it's so far accurate. But as we go on, when he ends speaking about the Labrador, I'm going to show you where to go to what Wheat says.
Okay. I'm going to start again.
Was Sam Carr around?
To the best of my recollection, Sam was upstairs in the apartment area of the house.
How about Wheat?
Wheat was home. Wheat was home. She was a dispatcher with the Yonkers Police Department at that time, and I believe she was working the night shift that week. So she was asleep in her area, which was on the ground floor, but also in the living quarter area of the house. And I believe Michael was home too.
Did he work there at the time, you know?
Who, Sam?
Michael.
Michael? No, Michael was doing some work with a photographer or an ad agency or something.
Uh-oh. He's guilty. He was working for an ad agency. That meant he wrote the Breslin letter.
Michael floated in and out. He did pretty well as he pleased.
What kind of guy was Michael?
Do you know him well? I mean,
I got to know him pretty well. What would happen was the fellow with whom I had taken on the job was tending bar in Mamaroneck. And a lot of times we'd be up there and Michael and Wheat or Mickey would come up to the bar.
what's this guy's name? The bartender.
Jimmy Faulkner.
Faulkner. And what was the name of the bar he worked?
Mariner's Inn.
Okay.
So of course, Jimmy Faulkner is a person whose name has come up many times, Eric, in as being involved because he bought Wheat Carr's house for like a song in the 90s and proceeded to renovate the backyard and excavate the backyard. So that meant he was digging up the bodies, which we now know were made up in Berkowitz's mind when he wrote his letter to Jimmy Breslin saying Sam Carr killed 50 people in New Jersey. Anything to add to that, Eric?
No. I mean, but you know, it's so peculiar though that in the 90s Faulkner would return to buy the home. I mean, not really peculiar, but because of the interconnections.
I don't think it's very peculiar. It's a huge home. It's a moneymaker. It probably has a lot of apartments in it, and he ran a construction company, so he could keep his vehicles there. He could live there. It actually would make a lot of sense for someone who ran a construction company to live at 316.
He's also starting to say this is kind of encounter and intimacy between them at the bar.
Between Faulkner and Wheat.
Yeah, or even he meeting Michael and Michael Carr and Wheat.
Okay, so let's keep on listening.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right, and they would come up and they would party up there. Michael was a little bit strange. Check that. He wasn't really strange. He was just effeminate. And, you know, in this day and age, we don't have to call that strange anymore.
Did Mike drink?
Yeah, he drank. He'd get.
It's funny because the notice how the people were kind of saying the same thing in the late 70s. Well, now in our day and age, we can't say the word strange anymore. Now in 2022, we're like, in our day and age, we can't say the word this anymore. So we can see how this whole creeping fascism of language has been a something going on for, well, at least 45 years.
Also, you might want to play the opposite view of Michael Carr by Wheat.
All right, so let's find that.
Yeah,
let's find that for sure.
That's 1 minute, 7:58 to 7:59.
Okay, give me a sec here.
No rush.
7:58 to 7:59. Okay, I got it.
June and Michael got married in October. From what his wife tells me, he was sent TDY, which is temporary duty elsewhere.
So basically what she's saying is that he was married.
Yeah, but then 8:43 to 8:44.
Okay, right here, 8:4. Well, hold on, 8. Give me a second. It takes forever, this thing.
And to Thailand, where his 3 overseas assignments.
I got it at
And
8:20. We're gonna have to listen to 20 seconds.
I'd always done things, smoked a little dope, smoked a little pot, but nothing really heavy until after the divorce.
He's talking about John now.
I don't think he was home the whole 2 years of the whole Son of Sam thing. I don't think that he was home.
Now it's coming up.
Well, he was home, but he wasn't. He was home for Michael's wedding.
Okay, so Michael's wedding. She just said Michael's wedding.
Yeah.
So listen, gay people can be married though, especially back then.
It cuts ahead though. Later on, when Degal starts to play Mr. Psychologist about Michael Carr, later on there will be more of a contradiction about Michael from Wheat.
Okay, so make sure you let us know where that is. So
yeah, I will, definitely.
I'm gonna get back to Degal's.
Yeah.
It didn't take him all that much to get drunk either.
And you've seen him.
So that is interesting. I mean, here we have this guy saying that Michael's gay, and then of course Wheat is saying that he's married. It doesn't mean anything, but she does say some interesting things later, though, about Michael's prowess with the ladies. Anyway, let's get back to Degal.
Drink.
Yeah, I'd seen him drink.
How about Wheat?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I've seen her drunk too.
Could she hold it?
No more or less than anyone else.
What kind of girl is she?
Taking basic psychology courses in college, you start getting carried away. But Wheat, as feminine as Michael was, that's as masculine as Wheat was.
Wow. Okay. So he's saying that she's very masculine. Now, one thing real quick that I want to put out there to the audience, just as food for thought. Okay. And this came from the great detective Michael Lorenzo Jr. He is obsessed with this Degal tape. Okay. And him and I are going to be going to out on a walk and talk to talk about this Degal tape. I think it's important enough that we're doing a couple shows on it. One today with Eric and of course one with Lorenzo. He noticed something that no one has spoken about yet at all regarding Degal, and that is his accent. And once he pointed it out to me, it was very obvious because you got to grow up here in this area to know. He said that Degal had, quote, a Bronx working class Jewish patois. Okay. And for the unquote, and for those of you who don't know what patois means, it's like a way of speaking, like an accent, like a manner of speaking. So he wondered if indeed Berkowitz and Degal knew each other. We're going to get to that a little later.
Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Let's carry on. But an interesting observation by Lorenzo that should be put out there to the audience to ponder.
She never appeared to be gay. She just appeared to be very masculine. She liked getting laid, if that term's all right. And she liked men. She didn't go for women at all. But she just was very dominant, very much one of the guys. Her motorcycle, her dress, all her mannerisms.
So motorcycle, that tends to give credence of the police report of Berkowitz looking for Wheat in a motorcycle club. So here we learn that Wheat drove a motorcycle. Now, it doesn't mean that Wheat was involved in Son of Sam. That's not what we're getting at. I'm on record. I believe Wheat's guilty. I mean, I'm sorry, innocent. But you know, her hanging out in a biker club does coincide with what Degal's saying here. She was
Was
a
it a
biker.
biker club?
Yeah, but a motorcycle club, yeah. And she
But
was a
that where
motorcyclist.
he frequented, or is it another place?
No, Deagle's just talking about her riding a motorcycle.
Right, right. That's not the motorcycle club, the bar where he
No,
knew.
but it makes it believable that she would be in a motorcycle club.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Anyway.
The fact that she became a police dispatcher. It was a house filled with police buffs.
Police
Sam
buffs.
Carr, from what I understand, used to set up busts and call in, you know, he'd set up the bust and then he'd call in the authorities. And the busts were all good.
Manny.
By the way, Lorenzo confirmed that. He said that Sam Carr into the 90s was setting up busts on people, and they were always good.
Now, Manny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Finish.
Yeah,
finish.
Lorenzo said that Sam Carr really cared about his neighborhood. He was not going to be pushed out by the drug dealers that came in the 80s and 90s, and he would set up busts. So this for so far, Fred Degal is being basically 100% truthful, although we do have some contradictions. So maybe I can't say that he is.
It's a contradiction. I let
Yeah.
it play. I let it go on. He's talking as if there's an intimacy and they're frequenting the same environment, right? That
Right.
they kind of hang
Right.
out together. Okay, I want you now to play 25-26 to 25-47 Wheat Carr.
Hold on, 25-26, you said?
Yeah, to 25-47.
Okay, give me a second. 25-46.
26.
Wait,
25-26.
okay, I'm getting to it. Hold on. You have to be very, very careful with the way
I
that
know. It's like juggling.
I'm going to start at 25-12.
Father and I that he was a lot more than just the person who was harassing Sam.
Beside this one fellow you saw in the car with him, do you know any other people who were friends of Berkowitz? Do you know where he is now?
Who? No,
Degal, is it?
no. I know he's in New Rochelle someplace. He's seen occasionally.
You know how you spell his last name?
It's Degil or El. I'm not sure. He has no cars registered in his name. They're registered in his... She's either his wife or his girlfriend at this point. I don't know.
What's her name?
I don't even know. I had very little to do with him. See, a lot of weird things happened at that time, and a lot of people thought I was getting really wacky. But I was driving from Mamaroneck towards New Rochelle.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
And
She said,
do you
I
know?
had
You don't know
very
New
little
Rochelle.
to
You
do
don't know.
with him.
Right.
She
Right.
said I had very little to do with him.
But here he is saying that she had a bike, she was manly, she liked to get laid. He was actually getting pretty intimate about
Yeah, how
her.
does he know all these things unless there's a lot of gossip, or he's one of these guys who looks at a woman or somebody looks at a man and says, "Oh yeah, I know their type." He doesn't
Right.
know. She says that she had very little to do with him and other friends of his.
Right. And here he is talking about her kind of intimate habits. All right. So interesting little contradictions here. Let's carry on with Fred Degal.
It was the same thing, or Mickey, as we called her.
What about the motorcycle? Was it around on the day of this shooting?
Yeah, it was in the back of the house. As a matter of fact, the motorcycle had been sitting there, I guess, for about a year and a half from what I was told at the time. As to the flat tire being shot, it's my opinion at this point that it was just flat from misuse, not from being shot. The bike was just sitting there. It took me some job to get it started, and I finally got it started. I had to put a charge on the battery for quite a while. The battery was really super dead.
That is a Bronx accent, by the way. He has a very similar accent to Jim Fay and Pat O'Shaughnessy.
And then we finally got it kicked over.
Did you ever see you using it? before that time? Because she
No,
was sitting there a long time.
I had never seen her use the bike. I had never physically seen her use the bike. My contact with her only began that summer.
Did you ever see her out on a date? Any guys she went out with?
Yeah, I'd seen her with men.
Were they cops or?
I had seen her with one cop, but that was a liaison that had begun in one of the bars right at that time. And he was a guy that I had known as a regular of the bar.
Recall his name?
Pretty sure his name's Tim, but I couldn't be positive. As a professional bartender, my relationship with him started out cordially enough, but everybody has their little quirks, and he started assuming too much. And a couple of times he'd come in, order drinks, and he'd walk out without paying for them. You know, and it's one thing if, you know, the guy's a regular, or you know, there's a whole situation, there's one thing you'll allow it. But all the guy to me was a customer. And this was a New York City cop in a Westchester bar. I wasn't interested in any nonsense.
You know what precinct he was at?
No.
Now, Manny.
Bronx or any?
New York City cop, yeah.
Okay. He seems to be saying a lot about Wheat Carr. And it's very intimate, right? Some things about her life. And he even, in fact, I hit the nail on the head when I said he gave later on a psychological description. He says he took psychology courses.
Right, right.
Now, I'm wondering why he is saying this about Wheat Carr. Could it be a defense mechanism? Because go to 2352 to 2443 and see who Wheat Carr speaks of, who Degal is with, whom she sees Degal with.
20, what was it? 20 what?
2352 to 2443.
Okay, here's 2343.
Oh, okay. You're going to start back?
Yeah, right here is right
52.
Here it is.
52. Okay. Listen closely.
Now, she's talking about David Berkowitz here, right?
Yeah.
I think we need to go back a little bit. It's not working.
It happens.
Oh, whoops. You know, I'm dumb. People are saying they couldn't hear because I stupidly didn't put it on there. Sorry, guys.
And that was about 2 weeks before he was arrested.
So she saw Berkowitz once 2 weeks before he was arrested. This is important. Okay, so
he was in the car.
Berkowitz was in a car.
Pulled up next to me at a traffic light. And it didn't even occur to me until he pulled away who he was, because the other person in the car was somebody I knew and was trying to track down because he had recently stolen $1,000 out of our house. He was supposed to be working. His name is Freddie Degal. And I looked at the car, and then when he pulled away, I looked at the car to get the plate because Freddie had disappeared. We hadn't been able to find him. And I looked at the plate. I figured, I'll go to work tonight. I'll run the plate up, find out, you know, somewhere to look for him. And then I looked at the plate and I said, that's that clown we're looking for because of shooting the dog and firebombing the house.
You had checked the plate out previously, or how'd you know the plate?
When we first found out, this was in July that I saw them. In June, when we found out Berkowitz, I admit I did a very bad thing. I went into the teletype room and ran his name through and got his driver's license and his address and his car and the fact that he had a suspended license, which is what a couple of cops who were friends of mine and Mike Lorenzo, we were trying to get him they were trying to get him driving his car.
Okay, so basically she's saying here that she sees. So what was your point initially? Because it was a little.
My point is this. we have Fred Degal identified being with David Berkowitz intimately. She recognizes him, and she mentions $1,000. She says, we were trying to look for a guy who took $1,000 from us." Now that's Degal. Later on, we will get to where he's accused of taking $1,000 from her, and the money, he's supposed to have stole it from her, according to Wheat and her family. And she suddenly sees him, and that's the guy who took so this is after he did the work at the Carr house.
Right.
And she sees him with David Berkowitz.
Allegedly sees him with David Berkowitz.
Allegedly. And she
Right.
says that, but she's definitive though with what she says.
Right.
In other words, it's allegedly from Fred's point of view, but it's the truth from her point of view. We can't say she's not telling the truth. But
Right.
that's interesting. This is the first time I've come across, I mean, of somebody actually saying we see somebody definitely with Berkowitz.
Yeah, I mean, and it's somebody whose name was never brought up in the Ultimate Evil anywhere.
And
A
it's
guy
somebody,
named Fred Degal,
and
and
somebody who's on the property when Harvey shot, and later on we'll see the dog is murdered.
the dog had murdered in New Rochelle, not in Yonkers. Yes, let's check. Let's listen more to Degal.
Possibly the Bronx, but
Remember what he looked like?
So they're talking about the
Just a
cop
shot.
that was going out with
yeah, stocky guy, 5'10" to 6 foot, somewhere in that vicinity. Mustache, Irish, earring in one ear. I don't know why. I know the guy. I mean, I saw him actually not that long ago. He's still on the job.
Did you ever see her with a John McCabe,
No,
Yonkers cop?
no. Not to my recollection.
Do you ever recall her being with any Yonkers cops?
Stories, no first-hand knowledge.
That is absolutely a northeastern, possibly even northwestern Bronx accent for sure. Lorenzo was dead on with this guy.
Did you ever work for Wheat other than the construction of the house?
No. Well, what happened, and it's like you're asking me questions, and in my opinion, what happened started out when this fellow with whom I had taken on this job had a motorcycle accident and broke his leg.
Okay, so Faulkner had a motorcycle accident and broke his leg.
And this was already after the apprehension of Berkowitz. And I was doing the work in the house, and then I took on the bartending job as well because I was going to try and hang on to the job for my friend. I didn't really care to have the job, but I was going to protect his interests in it. And there was just no way I could work the two shots. 10 and a half hours in a bar, 11 hours in a bar, and then try and finish off a construction job. At one point, Mickey Wheat displayed a desire to get together in bed with me. And I did not particularly find Wheat's companionship, something I wanted. And as a result of that, I became a negative factor in her opinion. She did everything to, get me out of the house or get rid of me, as if I had spurned her. That was the opinion I got, and it's not that my ego demands it. I just assume that's what it is. I was there to do a job, and I just wasn't interested in anything else, really.
She told us something about you. She was sick with the flu, like some guy she was in a construction business with. Had a warehouse with 2 dogs in it. One of the dogs got killed.
Dogs, okay. That would be, I can't remember the address. It's on Webster Avenue. There were 2 dogs originally. All right. One was a Dolby, and one was an Old English sheepdog. When I became involved in this renovation, the Doberman had already been dead. That was an incident that had taken place a while back. I don't remember the cause of death on the Doberman. But when Jim broke his leg, and I was doing all this running around, trying to do the construction, trying to tend the bar, I was also taking care of the dog. And one day I went into the place to take care of the dog, and the dog was laying there with his skull crushed.
This was the guy you were working with.
Yeah.
Does she have anything to do with him?
No, she has nothing to do with it.
So it actually was his dog. It wasn't.
Yeah, it
her
was
dog.
his dog. It wasn't her dog. Nothing was hers.
How did she fit into this business? Or
She
did
didn't. Except for the fact that she was the daughter of the woman for whom we were doing the work.
Does it sound like he sounds a lot more personal against her than she does against him? Maybe that's just my imagination.
He's speaking more in an intimate manner, where she comes on very dominant and centered.
Right.
I think, not false, but she's really there, and her answers come out without any hesitation. Now, I got to establish something. The murdered dog was where, Manny? Just refresh my memory.
In this warehouse on Webster Avenue in New Rochelle, I would
New
imagine. 'Cause
Rochelle,
there
okay.
is a Webster Avenue in New Rochelle.
And her mother, he was doing work for her mother there.
No, this was Faulkner's warehouse. Has nothing to
Okay.
do with her mother.
Nothing to do with her mother.
Faulkner had a broken leg. His warehouse was empty. He needed to take care of these dogs. He got Degal to take care of the dogs.
Okay, but she is concerned about these dogs, though. Isn't she herself is concerned about?
Well, she does talk about the dogs, and she blames him for doing it.
Yeah, all right. I want to give here an excerpt from her, because there's a crisscross here.
Well, let's hear him talk about give more of description about the dogs being dead, though. Let's get him.
There's something that has just hit me about the $1,000 and the time period of that $1,000 and wanting it and going after him for the $1,000.
Do you want to say it now?
Yeah, she sees Berkowitz. She recognizes Fred Degal because of the $1,000 that he owes them, which he says they paid him the $1,000. The mother paid him the extra $1,000. She says he stole the $1,000.
Right.
And there seems to be an incident where the $1,000 comes up again, but at the warehouse where they're working, he said it's after the arrest of Berkowitz.
Right. But this is all taking place after the arrest of Berkowitz. This is taking place. This whole business with the dog and Jim Faulkner's has nothing to do with Son of Sam.
Right, but he gets the money from the mother. She's paying him for this.
Oh, right, and that's the $1,000 that he was
Right.
making while Berkowitz was shooting the dog. Right.
Right.
Yes.
So if she's paying him the $1,000 for the warehouse, right? For the warehouse job, if I've got it right.
Well, he hasn't even talked about that yet. So let's
Okay,
let him say it, because we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Period. She had no involvement in it.
Was there any money involved?
From her?
Yeah.
No.
Or-
I got paid from her mother
To do work.
to do work.
Right.
Actually, it was not that profitable a job for me. I didn't make any money on it.
Right.
Everything, the way everything fell, all I ever did was manage to cover the expense of the materials we had bought. And,
Do you
but
remember?
I received checks from her mother's company.
Do you remember how much it was total? Say.
Not at this point.
Don't remember.
And I hadn't even done the pricing out. Jim had done the pricing out.
Right.
So it was a matter of, at this point, all I was trying to do was tread water, and get the job done.
At the time that you found the dog dead in the warehouse, whatever. What
Dog,
you do
hold
at
on.
that point?
Dog dead at the warehouse. Now, there was some confusion in the chat. By the way, my restream isn't working right, and I don't have the chat available to like press on and have them come up on the screen. It's unfortunate because I love doing that and I love getting you guys involved and having you guys chat up there. It makes everyone feel so good. Unfortunately, something's going on with restream tonight where I can't do that, but I can see your chat. And there was some hold on one second. There was some issues here where they were saying where did this happen? It clearly they just said at the warehouse.
Okay, at the warehouse. This is
Right.
the job at the warehouse in New Rochelle.
Right.
And the who's giving him this job? Because he doesn't really speak as well as her sometimes.
I'm not sure. To me, it sounded like he was just taking care of the dogs for Jim, just to cover for Jim while he had a broken leg. But those are details that I don't think are.
But who's his employer there, paying him for the work?
Faulkner.
Faulkner is paying him.
Well, I don't know who's paying who. The maybe people in the chat can figure this out. He was doing some work for Faulkner at the Carr house. That's what the $1,000 about. The dog issue was at this warehouse on Webster Avenue. Totally different, separate.
I think that there's a crisscross in the way he's telling things. He's not being that clear accurately. It makes you think that he will eventually get the $1,000 for the work done at the warehouse. You can't make heads or tails if he's talking about the warehouse or the car house.
I think he's talking about the Carr house, but let's, since none of that is very pivotal to our story, let's carry on.
Well, everything had already been over. Jim's leg was broken. I had stopped working in the house.
The Carr house.
Mm-hmm.
The dog was dead. I don't remember how we got the dog out. Oh, no, somebody else got the dog out of the place. I was very upset about it because I had become very attached to the dog, right? And I can't keep animals here at home. There's something in the lease. Otherwise, I would have taken a dog into a dog clipper, and had the dog cleaned and everything, and brought him home. I'd much rather have an animal in the house than leave him. It wasn't even a warehouse. It's a storefront, and tools and stuff and supplies and stuff were in there.
Okay, so it's a storefront, not a warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a small living loft constructed, and that's where the dog had been staying, in the area where the living loft was. But here I went one day, and then I couldn't go the next day, and then the following day I went back. And I remember I was saying to myself, boy, I'm going to have to clean up some shit. And I walked in, and the dog was laying there dead.
Was there anything about the dog? I mean, was the dog just dead, or was it?
The dog was laying on its side. Its jaw was definitely crushed. Not being a coroner, I wasn't about to start,
I'm hearing somebody saying no sound. Is that true? I think we can hear it. I got it shared.
No, I hear
the dog. I did not see any evidence of the maggots yet, and the bloat hadn't hit the dog yet. So I assumed the dog wasn't dead all that long. The blood had already dried, so from what I've seen of animals, he could have been dead 12 hours.
Was there anything around that could have done the damage?
Almost anything could have done it. A 2x4 can do it.
Was there any entry into the...
Door was locked. Door was locked. Everything was as it should have been. So now the only person that could have killed the animal was someone who had the key. And, friendships are a funny thing, and they get strained when someone's hurt. And one evening, somebody finally opened up and said, well, you must have killed the dog. And I blew a fit.
Was that Wheat accused you?
No. She wouldn't dare, because she knew what I thought of her at that point, and she let somebody else say it.
It's clear what he just said there. She wouldn't dare. She knew what I thought about him at that point. There's more to this story between Wheat and Fred for sure,
Right.
than we know of.
But I have to say this a piece you got to play here. This is confusion, because these dogs, what do you hear? Who owns these two dogs? Faulkner?
This is Faulkner's dogs in Faulkner's little storefront / warehouse. Faulkner's sick with the flu. Degal is taking care of the dogs for Faulkner.
All right. There's a piece you got to play here, because this is quite, Jim and Wheat confront Freddie, and it goes into the $1,000 again, and the death of the dogs and access to the dogs.
So
I
it's in
wa-
Wheat's tape. What's
Yeah.
the marker?
27:33. Now, do you want to do it in pieces or go all the way through with these three?
Where does it go to?
31:20 if we don't do it in sections.
Let's go right through because it's all
All right.
relevant.
Yeah,
Okay. I got it.
27:33
I got it.
to 31:20.
Talk about the dog that got poisoned.
Oh, so the only person with any access to that room was this Freddie, which kind of upset us and convinced us. He was supposed to be taking care of the dogs because both of us were in bed with the flu.
Faulkner and her.
And
Wait a second. Hold on.
No.
Didn't he say that that Faulkner broke his leg?
Well, he said he was the only person who was supposed to be taking care of the dog because we were sick in bed with the flu. We were sick in bed. Is she I don't.
Who's she referring to?
Yeah, that's why I was saying
Maybe her and McCabe.
that's yes, it's McCabe, I believe.
Right.
But-
Anyway, let's carry on.
so I went over there one day to see how he was, to make sure the dogs were okay, because I didn't completely trust Freddie. My friend trusted him, I didn't. So I don't trust anybody. I proved to be right later when he disappeared with $1,000. And I found the dog totally dehydrated and almost dead. So we got him in the car, we took him down to the medical center. They tried, it didn't work. Then later I went over there, again for some reason I hadn't been there. Freddie was supposed to be walking the dog and feeding the dog for us. And I walked in and smelled the dead body. And I found the dog, and the dog had been dead. The dog, I was there on Sunday, I found the dog on Thursday. The dog had to have been dead at least since Monday.
So she's saying that the dog was dead for 3 days. He's saying that the dog was just freshly dead.
Right. He said he smelt the dog dead. He says, I didn't yet see the maggots.
Maggots or bloat.
Why would he bring up maggots if the dog was recently dead when he found it? But yet,
Well, I think he was trying to say that it hadn't been there long.
yeah.
But she's saying that it was there for 4 days, which would
Yep.
mean that there would definitely be maggots and bloat. All right, so let's carry on.
In addition to the joints having been deteriorated, and so he was very flaccid, his eyes were gouged out of his head, literally gouged out of his head, and I found them in one room. And all of his teeth had been smashed out of his mouth. And he had all kinds of broken bones throughout his body. And I found a shovel with blood all over it. And I found the dog hidden in the bathroom like he was trying to hide behind the toilet, like he was running from somebody. This is where he always ran when we yelled at him for making a mess on the floor or whatever. So he had gone in there trying to get away from something. But he was beaten. His skull was crushed.
This was the sheepdog.
Yeah. We'd never made any report of it because somebody could have thrown a piece of poisoned meat through the slot with the other dog, you know. But this didn't make sense. And so that night, Jim had been in a motorcycle accident, so I went to where he was, and I told him. He came back and looked at the dog, and then we disposed of the carcass. And we went and confronted Freddie with it, and he swore to us that he had seen the dog alive at 6 o'clock that morning, that he had left the bar where he was tending bar and gone with 3 other people to walk the dog and feed him. And I'm telling him, I'm saying, you're lying, because this dog has been dead. Now, if you tell me you haven't been there since Sunday, I might buy it. You just let him starve. But don't tell me you saw him 12 hours ago, because you're lying. And, oh, no, you asked so-and-so. So I did. I said, what'd you do last night when the bar closed? He says, oh, we went out to breakfast about 6 o'clock, and then Freddie said he was going to walk the dog, and we went home. I said, Freddie says you went with him to walk the dog. He says, no. I said, okay, fine. I went and found the other person who was supposed to be with him. I said, what'd you do last night? Same story. They went out, they had breakfast, they closed the bar at 4, they had breakfast, 6 o'clock, they went home, Freddie went to walk the dog. So I go back and I say, Freddie, they didn't walk the dog with you. I believe them. I don't believe you. He says, you'll never know.
Oh my
What am I
God.
going to do? I can't prove he took $1,000. I can't prove he killed the dog. All I can do is someday say I'm going to strangle you.
Okay, this is an
Interesting.
important question. Is this dog murdered after Berkowitz is arrested?
Yeah, yes. Well,
Okay.
I guess so. I don't really know. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
see, there's overlapping things here, because if she says we're looking for this guy who stole $1,000 and she sees him in the car with Berkowitz, it's before Berkowitz. The $1,000 is important, Manny. It enters into all of this. She sees him in the truck or the car with Berkowitz. That's the guy we're looking for who owes us the $1,000. But yet here, once again, he's working at this place. He's supposed to be caring for the dogs. And she mentions once again, he owes us the $1,000.
Right. You're losing me here. I'm not quite following your logic.
If when she sees him with Berkowitz and she recognizes that's the guy we're looking for who owes us the $1,000,
Right.
it's as if he's out of their life. But now it seems that this is after Berkowitz was arrested. He's in New Rochelle working, and the incident with these two dogs.
Right. It sounds like he's very integrated into their lives because she's asking his friends what they did.
And she mentions the $1,000 again. That as if
Right.
what I mean.
So
This is-
yes, this is actually important. You bring that up.
It's a crisscross.
Yeah, and what's the timeline here? Is this happening before the arrest, after the arrest? Because some of it sounds like before and some of it sounds like after. Because before, yeah, you're right. So anyway, I mean, it's confusing. We don't know the timeline.
It's
Maybe
very confusing. You don't even know where one is working sometimes.
right, and what
Where
time
one
this
is
was all
not
taking
working
place.
sometimes.
This is the problem with the questioners, the interviewers. They're not getting
Because when she sees him with Berkowitz, he's like on the lam. He left them. He took the money and left.
right.
They're looking for him. But yet, after Berkowitz's arrest, if this was supposed to be taking place after Berkowitz's arrest, she's not saying, hey, give us the $1,000 first. That you
Well,
owe.
also, if it took place after Berkowitz's arrest, wouldn't she have known he was with Berkowitz? And why wouldn't she confront him? Hey, you were with David Berkowitz. What's the deal with that?
Yeah.
So to me, this is sounding like it probably was before the arrest. But yeah, you're right. I'm not so sure how significant it all is. But yes, definitely confusion.
And she
So I'm
doesn't
gonna.
have intimacy with him, she says.
It's clear
Or
that there's
his
some
friends.
intimacy there. Yeah.
Yet she knows who the two people are who are not named, who he was
Right.
supposed to be hanging out with and walking the dogs together. She knows who to go to.
Right. So how is she not intimate with this guy? Like he anyway, I'm gonna carry on with Degal. I've sped up the tape on Degal to 1.25 speed just because we have a lot to get through. And I think you'll still be able to understand it. If people have a problem, I'll go back to 1, but I think you'll be able to understand it. It just speeds things up just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Jim came up and was playing a game of 21 questions with me, and I finally said, what you want to come right out and say what's on your mind, and I went kind of crazy angry, but I was working. I was behind a bar. He's asking me all these questions. I still had a full bar of people to attend to, and that put a damper on my friendship with him for about a year and a half.
Who had access to that place, though?
It's hard to say how many keys were out. I did. Jim did. I think 1 or 2 other people may have had keys. I think Mickey had keys.
How come they don't ask the names of these people?
Yeah. And whose friendship ran the risk of ending? Who's the Jim he's talking about?
Faulkner, the guy whose
Yeah.
warehouse it is, whose storefront it is, and whose dogs it is. They confronted him about the dogs.
That's right. That's the Jim. Yeah.
Right.
It was my opinion at the time, and I think I told my wife even that I think Mickey killed the dog.
For what reason, though?
Anger. I'd love to see a psychiatric makeup on her, but
That's the 3rd time he mentioned psychiatry in this.
Yeah. And also now, wait a minute. This is something I overlooked about the contradiction. I'm sorry. It's the only one I overlooked. He said that he didn't think that she killed the dog before. Now he says he does think so.
Are you sure about that? That he
Did he
said that
say
before?
Did he say before he didn't think she killed the dog? The only one who could have done
Yeah,
that.
he did say that. He said she had nothing to do with it.
That's right. He said she had nothing to do with it, and I wouldn't dare ask her that question. But now look how definitive he is.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
then he starts calling her Mickey because she's Micheline by birth, I think.
Yeah, Micheline is her middle name, just like my name is Luis Manuel Grossman, and I went by Manny. Wheat is Wheat Micheline Carr, and she went by Mickey. Same exact deal.
See, what we're dealing here with this section is a crisscross.
Right, but you just discovered something that I think is important. We need to go back and confirm that, but I think he did say before that she had nothing to do with it, and now she's saying I think Mickey killed the dog. So he's contradicting himself in this.
I'm going to go into the document because I made a Microsoft Word document of his words while you're playing.
Well, Ray J is saying, yeah, he said she had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's right. Can you still see me if I bring my documents up?
Yeah, Undead Damon, he said it. Yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm going in to find it.
Undead Damon said, yep. Dave Moth, he's completely blown it. If that checks out, Eric.
Yeah.
And again, I put. Sorry, I can't put your quotes up, guys. Something's going on up with my chat, but I'm reading them. He's completely blown it. If it checks out, Eric. That's from Dave Moth. Danny Gray, consistently inconsistent, just like everyone in the Son of Sam case, except for me. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to continue on with Degal.
That's personal desire.
Why would Mickey have had a key to the place?
She was getting laid with Jim every once in a while. Man has no taste.
Oh my God.
But
he really, hold on.
There were things about Jim's life.
That was a completely gratuitous comment that he made. It wasn't necessary. Man has no taste. He has a very clear hatred of Wheat Carr for some reason. Something occurred between those two.
Yeah, and if he knew Berkowitz, it makes you start to think.
Exactly. I don't know whether she's telling the truth about Berkowitz, but so far in this, I said I was not going to make a judgment call, but so far in this, Wheat's coming out as more believable than Freddie.
Yeah, that's what I felt in my heart. The way she speaks, he's like hemming and hawing. Very clever, though.
Right, and we just found this. We have to absolutely confirm it because you guys said that he said it and all that, but I want to hear it for myself. If he did contradict the thing about the dog, then yeah, he's clearly lying. All right, let's carry on.
Before I met him, that I had no knowledge of, and that didn't interest me. Ours was a marriage of convenience to do some work. I hadn't been working; I needed cash. I used to do that kind of work, so I went back into it again. It was, it's usually lucrative, as long as you do the work right.
How long would you say you knew Mickey?
Over a period of maybe 5 months.
When did you first meet her?
I think it would be in either late February or March of that year. So this is, that was 3 summers ago, right? So 79, 78, 76, or 77. What year was Berkowitz apprehended? 77?
77.
77. So it would have to be in either late February or early March of 77.
So real quick, Jack Myers says he may have been dog tired after coming home from the bar, found a mess to clean up and snapped. Well, Jack, you win the prize for today because I didn't want to say it, but Lorenzo had the same exact thought exactly that Jack Myers just had, that if Degal did it, he probably came in, found shit all over the place, snapped, and just beat the dog to death.
Yeah, here I found it. It's
okay.
Within the 10th minute, 42nd second. He goes, when I became involved in this renovation, the dog had already been dead. That was an incident that had taken place a while back. I don't remember the cause of death of the dog, but when Jim broke his leg, and I was doing all this running around, trying to do the construction, trying to attend the bar, I was also taking care of the dog. And one day, I went into the place to take care of the dog, and the dog was lying there with his skull crushed. This was the guy you were working with? Lifer asks. Yeah. She had nothing to do with it. Now, she has nothing to do with it.
Right. So right there in this thing, we're catching Fred Degal in a complete 180-degree contradiction.
Right. He's definitive, indicative. She had nothing to do with it.
Right. And then we just heard him say that he thought Mickey killed the dog.
That's
So
right. That's right.
so his credibility has just taken a huge step downwards, in my opinion. Let's carry on.
It was about the first time I met her. She wound up giving me grief in a lot of ways. I used to be involved with a fellow in a truck garage business in Yonkers. And when Jim's van went, when the engine blew up, I called my friend up. He towed it all the way down from upstate, put it in his yard over in Yonkers. And, we left it there. I went in one Saturday afternoon. I started tearing the engine down to see if, it was salvageable. When we realized the engine wasn't, we just left it there, and I left it for Jim to decide what he wanted to do. Mickey tells two guys on the job in Yonkers to go over and start breaking my friend's chops, that it's a stolen vehicle and this and that, and she wanted to get the tools out of it. Meantime, my friend had just come out of the hospital with a heart attack, 30 years of age. I got a call one day. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I turned around and I called my friend Jim and I said, you find one way to get her off my back and his back, or there's going to be real problems. So there was no love lost between Mickey and myself.
So there's going to be real problems. So what would those problems be, right? Like, here's a guy who's actually threatening, intimating violence right here, no?
Now and she says, I never really knew him well or his friends. And he's speaking as if there's intimacy. And when she got out of his life, well, that's no loss for me. But there was an intimacy of knowing each other. And he called him Mickey.
Right. And Moet says here, Wheat sounds more believable, but it still sounds like they still have some anger towards each other. Yes, for sure. All right, let's carry on. This is good stuff.
To this day, she probably hates my guts because I can't stand the sight of her. On top of which, when the dog was shot,
him saying, I can't stand the sight of her. That sounds actually like a Berkowitz letter. I can't stand the sight, the smell of you. I can't stand this, I mean.
Can I admit something?
Yeah.
Now, Manny, I always respect whoever has an opinion about this case. And you and I are on the same track, but there's a slight difference because we're two different people, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
When she said she saw Degal with Berkowitz in the car, that opened up so much more, where I'm starting to go over other things about who was with Berkowitz and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the, I'm very close to how you think, but it's making me think here.
Right. I mean, and that's the whole point of this.
Degal's like a guy that you see on Investigation Discovery giving an open, free testimony to investigators. But then later on, if one pursues a cold case, they find that he's contradictory. He contradicts himself, not just her. He's contradicting himself. And that is usually sometimes a sign of guilt, because it's not as if somebody else is contradicting him. When a person contradicts himself, then that's a problem for me. I don't know if detective friends agree with me. It's a problem for me.
And it's a problem for me too. And what I don't understand is how the hell we caught this, right? Us unprofessional investigators and questioners, and Lifer sits there and lets him contradict himself and doesn't even ask him, hey, wait a second, you said before she had nothing to do with it. What's going on? But I guess this wasn't a criminal interrogation, and so, the rules are a little different.
He's with the New York State's Queens County District Attorney Office's homicide investigation.
Yes, but Degal's not a criminal suspect, so it's not a criminal investigation. All right, let me carry on.
She took the animal down to the New York Animal Hospital on the east side, on York Avenue, and 61st, 62nd Street, whatever it is. She came back, the dog was shot with a 45 and this and that and that. The entry holes were very small on the animal, and again, the gunshots that I heard, there's no way it was a 45, it was a 22. I don't know if anybody's checked with the animal hospital to verify what, size the weapon was.
So this guy's got knowledge of firearms.
But he's saying it. He's saying she said it was shot with a 44.
Right.
Now,
And
I believe at 3130 to 3143, she denies it's a 44. She says it's a smaller gun.
so where is that? Let's find that.
Yeah, I believe this is it. Harvey shot while Fred is working. 3130 to 3143.
3130 to 3143. Okay, I'm at 3121, so I'm just going to play it.
All right. That's after they confront Freddie.
Where did he,
Yeah.
did he work in a bar here in Hastings, or was
No, this was in Mamaroneck. It's a bar that's now changed owners 3 times since then. The other thing is, he was working in the house at the time Harvey was shot.
that's your father's dog?
Right. My dog, my father's dog, lives with my father. He's mine. But he was actually supposedly in the backyard. Now, the piece of metal in Harvey on the X-ray looks to be about that big, and it's about that thick. So it has to be a very large caliber.
It's still in Harvey.
Yes.
And
no, you
Harvey's
can't have it.
getting along well now.
Harvey's such a, he's such a nice dog. He really does look a little strange because he's all black. Well, black Labradors are black. But
Is that it, Eric?
Yeah. Don't go beyond 3143. Okay, she does say a large caliber, but she doesn't give the number of it.
Yeah, but a large caliber. Right. She doesn't give a number, but she did give a number she said it was a 44 to the NYPD when they called about Berkowitz.
Okay, I'm not a gunman, but anyway, I just thought you'd hear that because he was working in the backyard when her father's dog, she specifies it's not the family dog. She says it was my father's dog.
Well, what's interesting about this also is that if he was in the backyard when the dog was shot, well, why wasn't he interviewed by the police? He's nowhere in any of these police reports taken by Rogacki and Rogers. He is not there. And also, if he was in the backyard, why wasn't he considered a suspect in the shooting?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, now, I want to ask something. At the beginning, does he say he heard shots? Did he say at the beginning of this interrogation he heard shots? Or will that come later?
Yeah, he said he heard 3 shots, but I swore he said that he was inside the house working before, but I could be wrong about that.
Don't worry, I'll just look it up. I got the transcript.
Yeah. All right. So let's carry on. So now we have a contradiction where Wheat's saying it's a large caliber. He's saying it's a small caliber.
I think to this day, there's a bullet still in the dog.
Did she find any other slugs around?
Okay, hold on a second, because Scott Staley is saying something potentially important. Guys, when he said she had nothing to do with it, he was answering 2 questions. He meant his business because Wheat implied she was involved in his business. That's believable to me, considering how this guy Degal talks and he goes back and forth. So we need to verify that. It's not so cut and dry now because of Scott's statement. All right,
Here's the contradiction at the beginning.
Go ahead.
And I had part of the room completely taken away. This is Degal. It was in that room that I heard the first shot fired. I heard a total of 3 shots. And you'll have to give me a little leeway down positive. At this point, it was 3 shots, but it's also 2 years ago. It's also 2 years ago I heard the dog howl. When I ran out to the side of the house, that's where he saw a man running away down the aqueduct. So he's saying that he was in the house when he heard the 3 shots. Did he contradict himself now, saying he was working outside?
I'm losing it between these he says and she says. I think she said he was outside.
Okay, and he says he was inside.
He says he was inside. She said he was outside. So there's here's another contradiction. All right. So let's carry on with Fred Degal. Do we have Degal here? Yes, Degal.
You know?
Not within a few days of, the shooting.
Did you ever report anything to the police from the Warburton Avenue?
Yes, the day of the shooting.
Anything else?
Nothing involved.
You ever come across the name Fred Carr?
Fred Carr?
Yeah.
No.
So Chris Banks is confirming. Degal said he was inside. Wheat said he was outside.
Or Rita Carr?
No. No, the only cars I know were Sam and Mrs. Carr. I don't even know Mrs. Carr's first name. Mickey, or Wheat, Michael, and John.
When did you ever see John?
I saw him once. Can't remember month, day, date, time. He was in with his daughter. All right.
And where were you? Where did this take
This
place?
was at the Carr residence.
You were doing a job at the time.
Yeah, I was in the house. I don't even think we had begun construction.
How long did you work in the house,
At
approximately?
this point, I couldn't remember. It started out, I was doing a bathroom for Mickey in the living area of the house. And I don't know, the thing went with pipes and this and that, and all of a sudden I'm in the next section of the house working.
What kind of...
So there he is saying again that he was inside. And this guy said that he reported it to the cops. His name is nowhere in any of these police reports. Nowhere. And we have all the Carr police reports. And we have the Lorenzo reports. Nowhere is his name mentioned as a witness or as a caller or anything.
No, there's too many people named, and for some people mentioned, identified, but no, without names.
So far, it's Wheat. Wheat is edging ahead in this.
And here's something else. I thought that the talk of the Labrador Retriever would go further on, but he does speak about the dog. I got to read this. He says something about how the dog was was friendly. As any Labrador puppy would be. They felt they took good care of him, but they ignored him most of the time, and they left him tied out in the backyard. And he wasn't a noisy dog.
No, he was a noisy dog. He said he was a noisy dog.
He wasn't noisy. Okay, but he said that they just tied him out back. They felt they took good care of him. But if you go later to 32.7 to 32.41, Wheat says something completely different. He even says, I wish I had shears to cut to take care of a dog and everything. It's fur overgrowing. Listen.
All right, so where am I going on Wheat?
32.07 to 32.41.
Okay.
Loves people.
He loves
everybody in the world.
Harvey.
And collects rocks. Just carries big boulders around. Plays with bricks. Carries them around in his mouth. His throw stick is a piece of 6x6. This long, weighs 20 pounds. I throw it 10 feet. He fetches it, carries it around for a day.
She sounds like, I hate to say it, but she sounds like she's making up a story here.
I think you went too far ahead. It's 32.07.
I started it from there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, she's talking about how good the dog it was and how much she took care of it and played with it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it is contradictory. Fred said something and she said something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's head back to Fred now and see what he has to say more and see if we can catch any more he sheds, she says. I put it into 1.5 speed. Hopefully it's not too fast. Again, just trying to save a little time. They speak pretty clearly, so we can probably understand it. But if we don't...
There's going to be a big contradiction coming up.
That was John, if you ever had a chance to talk to him.
Quiet, that's all.
Can you describe it all? Height, weight, facial hair.
Thin.
You were
Average height, shorter than me. I never stood next to the man. I never really had a conversation with him. Saw him, if I saw him for a total of a minute. And even then I was involved in doing some figuring. I was, introduced, hi, so, okay, thank you, fine, goodbye. That's all.
Did a mustache, beard?
At this point I couldn't remember. Could not remember.
How about a weight? You couldn't get a weight out of it?
Slight build. Nothing,
Not like Mickey.
that's the...
Too fast. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to 1.25. Huh?
Who's
What?
he talking?
I believe they're talking about John.
Built like Michael, only taller. That's
Built like Michael,
that's the
only
only image of
taller.
John I ever had. It's the only image of John I ever had.
They ever mentioned him, like where he lived or where he was from or what he did?
Montana or North Dakota, somewhere out there. Never asked why, never wanted to know. It just, hey, didn't matter to me.
Was he still around when you started doing the job in July?
No, went back. Yeah, going back.
Do you know whether you ever see a car in the driveway with Dakota plates or anything like that?
No.
No strange cars
No,
around?
as a matter of fact, when he came in, he flew in.
Flew in. And he had a girl with him, little kid.
Yeah. Well, it was Mrs. Carr's granddaughter,
Yeah.
so, you know. I think there was a period where she stayed, the granddaughter stayed at the house for a few days. But again, it's like, they were events that really didn't matter, you know, it's like just
We heard something about $1,000 being missing from the car house. Did you ever hear anything about that?
$1,000 being missing from the car house? No. Mrs. Carr gave me a check for $1,000. Well, she cashed the check and gave me the $1,000, with which I paid for the supplies that came in. That was, you know, at one point we needed money, and we said $1,000 because the sheetrock we put up, which was covered with a vinyl covering, cost us almost $800. As I remember, to cover the room, you know, there was sheetrock and moldings for in between and colored nails. In fact, I think to this day I may even have a box of the colored nails somewhere that fell into my car.
Where'd you live at that time?
Right here.
Still, you lived there?
Yeah.
Did at that time with the $1,000, did anybody pursue you and question
not
the
at all.
$1,000? Okay.
I was, Mrs. Carr lived by the side of the house in the driveway. I went to her, it was early in the morning. Jim had already been injured. And I said, Mrs. Carr, I need about $1,000 to cover the delivery of the stuff. The stuff's ready, it's there.
So there was no hard feelings as far as the job was concerned when you left?
Well, there were hard feelings in as much as Mickey kept cranking everybody up that I hadn't finished the job. What started out as a simple thing where I remember standing by the house and I said to Mrs. Carr, I promise you I will finish this as soon as I can. I said, but I'm trying to cover Jimmy in his bartending job, so it's going to be a little strained for me. Right? And then the next thing I knew, it was like, they don't even want you in the house. And they said, well, because Mickey cranked it up, you know, where I had done something wrong.
Okay, so that's where the whole $1,000 stealing. So he's saying that he got the money to do the job and he could not finish the job, and that he told him he would come back. And then when the time he tried to come back, they wouldn't let him in the house because they accused him of stealing the money.
Yeah.
I actually believe the Carrs in this one, I have to say, because
Yeah, I believe the Carrs, because that's a big contradiction. And you know, I also blame, I would say this to him. I've tried to get in touch with him, Assistant District Attorney Herbert Leifer. I would say that, you know, he did not interview this very well. He was not as specific as I would have been, if I may say so,
right.
or who would have been, because sometimes you don't know where the guy is working, at the house or in New Rochelle, and the time span of the $1,000.
Right. Is this taking place before the arrest or after the arrest? And when is the dogs being killed? Before the arrest or this is actually very important because
$1,000 is before the arrest, when she sees him with Berkowitz. She says, we were looking for the guy with the $1,000. And now we're back to New Rochelle, where he gets the $1,000 for the sheetrock, but then Mickey doesn't want, Wheat doesn't want him around.
No, the $1,000 for the sheetrock is for the Yonkers house.
Right. Okay. That's that. See, it's confusing. I'm sorry.
But what's confusing to me is what's taking place. Forget about here, there. What's taking place before the arrest and what's taking place after the arrest.
That's
because
right.
If this guy is involved with Berkowitz, well, then the dog killing before the arrest takes on a very different tenor.
Yeah. And what about if he's claiming he saw somebody run away down the North Aqueduct, and he's involved, and he's just pointing that way when it's really this way.
Right, and Jack brought up a good point before in the chat, that if he's involved with Berkowitz supposedly, why didn't he identify him on the aqueduct? And I'm not quite sure where Jack was going with that.
Well, I think he means if they were friends.
Right. By the way, I'm going to put into the chat right now, everybody, if in case anybody wants to call in, please do. And again, I'm having issues with the chat tonight, so I have to do it like in a half-assed way here, but there we go. If anybody wants to call in, please make your calls brief. We have a lot to get to, but we would love your opinions. All right, so let's carry on.
The biggest thing I had done wrong was when Jim came back from the hospital after the accident, I put him here in my house, because he had no place to stay. And I figured, well, this is an elevated building. He would have mobility. At that time, we had a Castro convertible in here. The man could live like a human being. You know, the kitchen, the phone, everything was, you know, reasonably handy. The TV was sitting right where it is right now. So I figured the man could live here. Mickey didn't go for this at all. You know, this was her friend Jimmy, and she was going to do whatever she had to. Well, Mickey never had my home phone number. You know, I wouldn't allow Mickey in his house at all because by that time I just didn't want it near me.
Where's your friend live now?
Here in New Rochelle. You know.
Is he working?
I'm not sure. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure right now because he and his wife just had a baby also, and they've been planning on going down to visit some relatives in Florida. I don't know if they left yet or not.
Where were they living at? Do you have an address?
Right now, I think he's listed in the local phone book. You know, you can get it
How
from
do you spell his
his
last name?
Faulkner. Faulkner.
During the time you were in the Carr house, did you ever see any guns there?
Oh yeah.
Do you know what kind of guns you saw? And could you tell us?
The only two pistols. Mickey had a couple of pistols. Small caliber pistol that Mickey carried. Sam had a couple of pistols. I think a 38, but again, I'm not positive. As I said, they were all police buffs.
You know what kind of gun Mickey carried?
Small caliber. Clip load from the bottom.
You know what's very interesting, Eric, is that they're all police buffs. So here you have the Carr family that, according to Degal, are all police buffs. And then you have Berkowitz and his friends who, by their own admission, were all police and fire buffs. Police buffs are all over this case. What's going on here? I mean, I'm not saying there's anything conspiratorial, but this is highly coincidental and very interesting to me that everybody in this case on either side from this way to Sunday is a police buff. Anyway.
Yeah.
Automatic. Keeping a pocketbook or carrying an ankle or
Pocketbook. I don't even know if it was a licensed weapon.
how'd you happen to see them?
That was
One
my
night she got
question.
drunk up at the bar and started blowing holes in the Rheingold clock.
At the bar?
Yeah.
Which bar was this?
Meredith in America.
All right. Well, first of all, here's another thing which vindicates. Remember, Eric, when we had a show, the Candlelight Inn incident, and how Maury got that completely wrong in the book. So, if Deagle's telling the truth here, and that's a big if, the clock that she shot up was at the Mariner Inn, not at the Candlelight Inn. So Maury got that wrong in the book, assuming this story's true. Maury definitely saw this material and he heard this material because he used quite a bit of it for his selectively edited out, I should say, quite a bit of it for his book.
Was there any?
Carry on. Sorry, Erica.
The thing that's evident is that Fred is painting this picture of vast intimacy. Whereas Wheat says, I didn't know him and his friends, and her only relationship is by way of her mother with business.
Right. But
And now he even says that Jim Faulkner was her boyfriend, no?
Well, he said that, yeah, they were messing around with each other. But yeah, there's something intimate here. And even on her end, though, I can catch some subtext of that there's more to the story on her end as well.
Because of the accusations against each other, the certain vexation against each other. Why does a man say, yeah, she carried this gun, and then I don't even know if it was legal?
Correct. I was going to say the same thing. That's like that's something you say when you don't like someone and you kind of want them to get in trouble. You don't come out right out and say it, but you tell the cops. I don't even know if it was legal or not. You know,
If
hint,
I was
hint.
Rifer, I would have said, why are you saying that? What do you suspect?
Right, exactly. All right, so let's carry on.
You have a report of that, or just?
No. As I said, it was small caliber.
Did you know if she ever frequented the Candlelight Inn, Central Avenue in Greenberg?
Possibly. Never went with her there. Never discussed
Never
it.
heard that she was a regular customer. Did you ever know David Berkowitz?
Never met the man.
Never met him.
When I saw the pictures of him,
Never met the man, and she says she saw him in the car with Berkowitz.
Right. And he also, the way he says it, never met the man. That's not actually answering, did you know him? I know that I'm being very semantic there and very parsed words.
You have to be.
But he's not actually saying I didn't know him. He said I never met the man. I guess if you never met someone, you don't know them. But he didn't answer that directly. Anyway, okay.
black. You know, it was like,
Didn't mean anything to you. You'd never seen him.
it struck me that such a nebbish would
Never rode in his car.
never. Now, I had been in 35 Pine Street. And I had been in 35 Pine Street approximately 2 years earlier than that. I don't know if he was living there at the time.
You were living there.
No. A girl I had been seeing was living there, and that was why That's why I was in 35 Pine Street, but it was like the incidents were, because I had been living in the city of Yonkers for a while. I think I moved to Yonkers in 72, 73.
Let me ask
Maybe
you,
earlier.
Wheat, what did she do? When she wasn't working,
She was sleeping usually.
okay, she got around, right?
Yeah, no, she'd cut out for a while. She'd come back. Most of the time I saw her, she was either getting up from bed or going to bed.
It's kind of another nasty dig at Wheat right there.
Yeah,
saying
and he
that
certainly
all,
knows a lot about her. She'd be
yeah,
around, then she'd come around.
right. She'd
As if
be
she
in
was like,
bed all the time.
yeah, as if she was one of these people who would go on a bender for 2 weeks and come back. The way he's speaking. And then there's something I picked up. It could be true, but when somebody says, "No, I never met the man," and then he says, "Oh, but you see, I did live on Pine Street. I had a girl on Pine Street."
Right. He's over talking.
Yeah, he's over as if to protect himself in case they were to find out something.
Right.
His
Right.
conscience is speaking. "Oh, but I did live on Pine Street. Oh, but I did live on Pine Street. What are you referring
Right.
to Pine Street for? Why even bring it up if you never knew the man? What's the importance?"
I agree. When he brought up Pine Street, that immediately, and I should have paused it there, but I wanted to keep it going. That immediately put up my spidey senses because it was like, why are you bringing that up? Just say you didn't know the man and leave it there. Don't start talking about Pine Street, about how you were. That's like something that the cops would immediately be suspicious about.
And
It's funny because
what's the name of the girl he had?
wouldn't it be a hell of a joke on all of us at the end of this if Berkowitz's accomplice was Freddie Degal at the end of all this, somebody who we'd never heard of until a week ago?
I think it's amazing.
Anyway, I'm not saying that it was, but listen, we still have a getaway driver to deal with in Netto. Anyway, let's carry on with Degal.
It was with the dispatchers. I think they rotated, as did the uniformed officers on a 24-hour cycle. So however they worked it, 2 on, 3 off, 5 on, whatever it was. She followed the same schedule.
Right. You mentioned before that it wouldn't surprise you or something to that effect about killing the dog or killing the dog. Or
Yeah,
what makes you say that?
Mickey's personality. If she thought, I remember at the time my feeling was that if she thought that the blame would fall on me for the dog, she would regain Jim's friendship, as being the main individual to be his friend. In other words, it appeared to her that I was Jimmy's closest friend, and she wanted to break that. I mean, I could really give a shit.
He says I could really give a shit. He actually sounds like he very much gives a shit here.
Yeah,
and that this was something major in his life.
Yeah, because if he didn't give a shit, as he says, then why would he say it cost me my friendship with Jim before about something? Is he implicating here that she killed the dog?
Yeah, he's saying that. Yeah, he's saying that she. I think he is saying that.
So all of a sudden now, what minute are you at there?
30:30.
Okay, I'm just going to go into the docket because now he said, no, she had nothing to do with it. Nothing. I read that to you. And now this is the second time that he is definitive about she's the type who would do that. And yet he says, no, she would never do that.
Well, again, before there's a confusion as to whether or not he was answering that question before. So we have to confirm all that. So anyway, let's carry on.
I met the man through my wife. We spoke several times. He hadn't been doing any contracting work. I said, look, I need a job. I said, I got to earn some money. My wife, and we weren't married at the time, was supporting me. And this and that and the other thing. And we lined up a couple of small jobs, and then we wound up with this thing in a car house. And it started out as just doing the bathroom, and then it blossomed into this other room, like bingo, overnight. There was a couple of tiles upstairs, a piece of ceiling upstairs.
What kind of place is upstairs? Is it clean, neat?
It was clean and neat as the rest of the house. The house is a mess. The house has been lifted downstairs 2 or 3 times. There's a couple of I-beams that were put in to jack up the house because it started sagging so badly. I don't think there's a square or level wall, a corner or floor or anything in the house.
How about Wheat? She's clean, neat, sloppy, hippie type.
Personally,
Yeah.
to me, Wheat struck me as a pig. Shit. Someone cannot take a bath and still look clean. Wheat, I knew she bathed every day. I mean, it was like, there was no bullshit made about it. Anytime I saw her, she was going, when she'd get up, she'd go to the shower.
Wait a second. If he wasn't that intimate with her, he knows now her showering and bathing when she got up. He knows her bathing
Yeah,
habits.
this guy's caught in something. I just reread what he said in the 30th minute, that she would actually commit bestial homicide if it thought that Jim would make Jim closer to her again, because he had become best friends with Jim.
Right.
And Jim, because he needed a job, it's Jim who gives him the construction job with him, right?
Right.
Jim Faulkner. So he's making it seem that she was jealous that he became friends with Jim, and that she would, to get Jim closer to her, he wouldn't put it past her to kill the dog.
Right. And also to split up their friendship.
Yeah, but yet Wheat says that Jim was with her to confront him about the killing of the dog. About
Right.
what happened to the dog, and why didn't he walk the dogs? They confront Freddie.
Well, that could work with what he's saying, though, that she did it to break up their friendship. So that actually kind of matches, because then he did go and break up their friendship. Remember, he said that they didn't speak for a year and a half, him and Jim
Yeah.
Faulkner, over this incident. So their
Okay.
friendship was broken up, in fact.
But Wheat also says that they were ill. They were both ill. She was ill.
No, she didn't say who the other person was. Faulkner, I think she was talking about McCabe.
Yeah, yeah, because what's McCabe's first name?
John.
Okay, yeah, there's a confusion there, overlapping of John and Faulkner sometimes.
Right.
You think
So
that almost they're both ill, and then she goes with Jim to confront Freddie, and you would think that Jim was ill in the house with her when it's actually her husband, John.
right, exactly. Anyway, let's carry on. So yeah, contradiction after contradiction. And so far in my counting and my score, Fred is not looking good. Wheat is looking better, not totally great, but Fred is looking pretty bad.
She always looked like she was dirty. It was one of those things that it struck me at the time.
You say you knew Sam had some guns too.
Yeah.
How'd you happen to see those?
Sam would walk around the house a lot of times with his 38 on his hip.
Good way to know.
And then after the shooting, I grabbed Sam. I said, "You get me a shotgun." I said, "I'm gonna leave it up in the rafters here, but you just get me a shotgun."
For what reason would anybody want to shoot Harvey?
From what I understand, they had gotten several threatening letters regarding the dog and his barking.
Did he bark a lot?
The dog barked incessantly. The only time he didn't bark was when I kept him with me. And then I couldn't work because he was rubbing into me all the time. All the dog wanted was affection. That's all the dog wanted. Different people have different ideas of what constitutes affection. If you just feed and put a roof over an animal's head, they figure that's affection. But he's a puppy. And as he got older, he wanted more and more affection. They're very demanding. And just dragging him outside and putting him on a chain in the backyard, no wonder the dog barked.
How good a shot was Wheat?
Couldn't tell you. I mean, she was drunk that night. That she hit the clock at all, I was amazed. But,
She whip it out, just,
Yeah.
think of like she knew what she was doing, and she knew.
Well, she knew in her head what she wanted to do. It was, I've been involved with people in bars for a while, and I found like the average bar fight lasts 30 seconds. If you enter into it to try and break it up, chances are you're going to make it a worse situation than it is. I try and stay prepared for all contingencies, pulling out guns and the rest of it. The best thing to do is that's what she had in her mind to do, let her do it.
When this incident happened, was she there with a date with a guy?
No, I think she'd come in alone. She used to come in often alone. I think she used to just come up to break my balls. I really think that's the case. Honey, would you give me a cigarette sometime?
She told us she saw you in Berkowitz's car.
Fine. great.
That's a very interesting answer.
Mhm.
He says, fine, great. Now, if I was never in Berkowitz's car and someone accused me of that, and this was the first time that I had ever heard that, I would be like, what? I was never in Berkowitz's
Yeah,
car.
I
Never.
said
What do you, what are you, huh? What are you talking about? Never.
Fine, great means, oh, fine, great. Another rabbit she's pulled out of the hat.
Right. But it's not. I mean, to me, that's like a very strange answer. I would be much more unequivocal about that. I'd be like, no, hell, what are you talking about? Anyway,
And you
let's
mean to
listen.
tell, yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
you mean to tell me that somebody who goes berserk in a club and starts shooting like a Western, as if they're cowboys who came off a cattle drive and they get drunk in a bar and they start shooting the windows out? You mean to tell me nobody in that place would call the cops?
Right.
Would
There's no
somebody else-
police report about it. I mean, yeah, I can sort of believe that,
There
but
seems to be a lot in this Yonkers at the time where the cops aren't called.
well,
She
you
just
got to
goes-
know Yonkers sociologically back then. Not that I'm the expert, but having seen Yonkers in the 80s and early 90s when it was still very similar to the 70s, Yonkers was a lawless place, its own place, almost as if it was Derry in a Stephen King novel, like its own ecosystem. It's almost like it was sealed off from the rest of New York. It was a very, very intense place. So it's very interesting. This Degal. So all right. So we're at a good spot. Let's listen to this. So he's being accused of being in the car. They're being in the car with Berkowitz, and now they're confronting him about it. And he goes, "Fine, great, okay, let's listen."
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
She also told us that you ripped off $1,000.
Fine. Why wasn't I arrested?
We're just asking you. That's all.
That's not an answer. Why wasn't I arrested? That doesn't mean shit. That's not a no.
That's right.
Okay.
Basically,
She
that's
said she told a couple of Yonkers cops at the time that I ripped off the van. The van was right where we towed it to.
Let me ask you a question. Did any time while you were working in the house, did you hear mention of letters being received
Yes.
about the dog?
Yes, definitely.
What was the substance of the letters?
Ever show them to you?
No, I never saw the letters. Just to the references to the fact that one letter said definitely they were going to kill Sam if he didn't stop the dog from barking. It was definitely. I remember them talking about it. It was worded about the dog barking.
What was Sam's response to that?
They sent it to. He asked some cops to take a look at it. I think they called the postal authorities, but I'm not positive. You know, what people say they're going to do and what they do are two different things.
Was the dog still tied outside after that?
Oh, sure.
After the dog being shot?
Oh, no. After the
Oh,
dog being shot was a different story.
Okay.
You know, that already was a different story.
What did they do with the dog after he was shot?
Brought him down to the animal law.
No, the dog got better though.
Kept him in the house and would walk him. You know, and time-wise, do you remember the date that Berkowitz was arrested?
August 11th.
August 11th?
1977.
All right, yeah. I was
Early
in the bar working because the weekend Jim broke his leg was Memorial Day weekend. Okay, it was the end of May, beginning of June, yeah. And I was only at that household 3 or 4 times after that date.
What kind of person did Mrs. Carr strike you as being?
The only sane one in a bunch. She was a businesswoman. She ran a successful business. She really did. She ran a good answering service. I knew it was a good answering service beforehand because when we had an answering service for the garage business I'd been involved with, we had threatened the one we were with to go to her because she seemed better. The only thing was the guy we were dealing with had the beeper service. And we were doing police calls on it, you know, like the accidents. You get a police call off the towing list, and you go and pick up the wreck. Mm-hmm. And you had to have the beeper because to get a hold of you, they got to be able to get you quick. And if 2 cars were wrecked, and you want to get there first guy on the scene got the better of the 2 cars. You know, because there's no chasing in Westchester like there is in the city.
Did you know of Wheat Carr ever doing any type of drugs? At all?
No.
How about Michael?
No. I assumed vague references to smoking pot.
By who?
Michael.
They ever talk to you about the Church of Scientology? Ever hear about it in the house?
Possibly. I don't think there's anyone walking around that has been anywhere. If you've been to the New York State Fair, you walked into a building and all of a sudden you came up to a big exhibit of Scientology. And if you were jerky enough to start talking to them, all of a sudden you got crap in the mail. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, years and years ago, we had stopped at the Syracuse Fair, and it was a good-looking girl at the Scientology exhibit, and they really seemed to hit it off. And I don't know, he made the mistake of giving her his address, and he was getting Scientology nonsense for about 2 years.
Never saw any of that kind of stuff around the house.
No, no. I had, until recently, when they had the lawsuit going, when I think the government was prosecuting the Church of Scientology for something, I hadn't heard very much about Scientology in years.
Did Wheat ever go in, that you know of, go out of the area? Or was she, local hangout or local bars?
As far as I know, she was local. I mean, from Yonkers to Mamaroneck is a half-an-hour ride, because you got to take every other route under the sun. That's the local, though. I mean, we're not talking about a tremendous mileage involvement.
Was she a disco type?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. She was more into leather. Motorcycles and...
But you never saw her, did you ever see her ride a bike?
Never saw her ride the bike. Jim said she could ride.
What kind of bike was it?
A Harley, Sportster. 1000cc. Because the 1200s,
Too big.
just too big for her. That's a lot of weight to carry. I mean, you got to stay there and really balance.
Was it an old motorcycle, new motorcycle?
No, it was a couple of years old. It was. I know it was an AMF job, so
it had to be
that already is not
70,
that old.
Right.
You never saw her ride it?
Never saw her ride it once.
What kind of car did she use?
I'm trying to remember what kind of cars they had. I know they had a red Dodge or Plymouth.
That's interesting, a red Dodge or Plymouth, because I got to go back to my Netto work, but the Nettos mentioned something about a red car being involved in something or other. Not making any accusations here, but anyway.
At this point, I don't remember whether it was a wagon. Yeah, it must have been a wagon. She might have had a Plymouth Valiant or something. Again, very vague. I really don't remember.
Remember the colors?
Just the red wagon. Just the red wagon. Yeah, just the red wagon.
You ever see a blue Mercury Montego around there?
Possibly. On Warburton Avenue, you see a lot of cars.
How about a van? Did they have any vans in the yard? 75 Ford van.
Beige?
I don't know the color.
Well, the only van in the yard, and I don't know if Jim's van was a 75, it may have been a 73. A Ford window van. It was a big job. Heavy-duty suspension. We had a roof rack on it. That was our van. Now, they may have towed the van. No, as a matter of fact, when they towed it out of Kenny's yard, they towed it over to a friend of Jim's house, put it in his driveway. I don't know whatever, became of the van. I think he sold just the Hulk, so somebody else could throw a motor into it.
Were you ever down in the area this year, in 78? January 78, February 78, through now?
Yeah, I've been back to Yonkers several times.
But over the car place?
No, not at all. Not at all. I had some traffic problems in Yonkers that I just got cleared up about a year ago. My darling friend Kenny, I had left him with a car I had several years ago with the plates on it. I never turned the plates in. So he parked the car all over the place with $1,500 in parking tickets on the car. I finally got that resolved. But I don't go to Yonkers. I have no business in Yonkers, really. Just recently to clear up the traffic stuff. And that was about it.
You were the bartender when she fired the rounds to the clock?
Yeah.
No report ever made? Nobody in the place hit the floor?
No. I think there were one or two other people in the place.
Was she just sitting at the bar when it happened?
Yeah.
Sit at the bar, open the purse?
Yeah, well, it went with Mickey's personality. Well, she's Mickey, she's hot stuff and this and that and bing, bing, bing.
You ever see her get in a fight?
Physical fist fight?
Yeah.
No.
How about screaming sessions? Hair pulling stuff?
No.
Nothing like that. When she got drunk, what kind of drunk was it?
Happy, surprisingly enough. She was not a morose drunk.
Loud?
Volume of the voice lit up, but not, not anything tremendous. It's like the bar at night, all of a sudden a jukebox has to go up because everybody's voice level goes up. So by the time you reach 4:30 in the morning, the jukebox is blasting. Everybody's hoarse and screaming. The same thing. I mean, as it gets later, for some reason people think because you can't hear as well. Nobody else can hear as well. So
What kind of relationship do you have with the brother Mike?
couldn't comment on it. I mean, she would take him with her several times. She brought him up to the bar a few times. I don't think he drove, as I remember. He may have, but it strikes me that he didn't drive.
Well, it's interesting that Fred Degal says that he didn't drive. Now, that's not definitive one way or another, but Maury Terry's thesis on the Eliphas shooting was that Michael Carr either did it or was there and got into the driver's side of a Cadillac and drove away. So if Deagle's telling the truth and Michael didn't drive, well, then that shows that Maury... Huh?
He's not telling the truth.
Oh, right. Michael died in a car. Duh.
He dies off of Route 9A, the Henry Hudson Parkway.
Guys, it's my fourth show of the week.
Oh, no, you didn't do anything wrong.
I made a very basic error.
Of course, he was driving and he took that left-hand turn.
Right. No, we don't need to go any further. I was wrong. He drove. Let's finish this.
Listen,
out.
I want to ask something. When he talks about a blue car, Life asked, what's that? I couldn't catch the word.
A blue Mercury Montego. He was talking about John Carr's vehicle.
Because there's a blue car, but it starts with an M that he takes out to North Dakota.
Yeah, the Mercury, the Merc.
Yeah.
Remember when Tom Taylor says he came with a blue Merc? It had a bad lifter.
Yeah, that's why he's asking about the blue car.
Right, exactly. All right, let's carry on. We only have 2 more minutes. Let's see where we can go with this, and then we'll finish it up. And if anyone wants to call in, please feel free to call in. The whole point of this is to get people involved in this. All right, let's finish it out. Let's see what's up.
Funny thing about Michael is I always kept waiting for him to proposition me. You know, that was the impression I got. That sooner or later, one day he was going to proposition. He had a habit. He'd come into the area where I was working to talk to me, and he'd come in his skivvies. You know, come on, you walk around. I mean, you guys came into the house here. I said, let me go put some clothes on. I was wearing a bathrobe, right? It's a natural thing. I can't see you walking around the house almost naked. In the bar business, and I've been in and out of the bar business in the last 12 years, you come into contact with a lot of homosexuals, and it's something that you see among the fags. It's a mild exhibitionism that they all display. They want their bodies to be. That's why he was very effeminate. I don't know if he was completely aware of his own masculinity, and it's not that if you're a fag, you're not masculine. You know what I'm driving at. Mm-hmm. I don't think he could fully come out of the closet yet. I don't even think he knew he was in the closet yet. But he was just that effeminate.
Did Wheat ever cover for him because of that? Did she ever protect him? Did she...
Yeah, you know why he's asking this question? Did Wheat ever cover for him or protect him? Because Wheat spent her time saying what a ladies' man John and Michael were.
That's for you. Let's hear a bit.
We don't need to, because we know what she says, and I kind of want to. We're getting on 2 hours, and I kind of want to wrap this up. But we don't need to hear it. She
loves to meet girls. She's a Don Juan. She
spends quite a while talking about what ladies' men both her brothers were. So here he is saying that he was a homo. Okay. And now a lot of people have said that Michaels was a homo. So Fred sounds like he's telling the truth here.
It's an 11-second cut. What Wheat says.
I don't want to take the time because I want to carry on. But yes, Wheat says for sure that her brothers were ladies' men and Don Juans.
How do you know this guy doesn't have a sexual problem?
Well, we don't. I mean, he's
a lot about people. He's talking a lot about a woman. He's and sometimes, that's a trait of a guy who has a problem. And then he says, oh, that guy's a fag and she did this and that.
Right. I mean, it sounded to me like, first of all, and people touched on this in the chat already, that Fred has a very high opinion of himself. He thinks that everybody wants him, and including the men. I don't know. Fred's kind of coming off in this as pretty smarmy. Let's finish this out, and then we can talk, and then maybe have some people call in.
He repulsed it.
I don't remember there being an instance where it was necessary.
In other words, she just accepted it, and she didn't.
Yeah, no, she made no.
All right. Well, that's the end of that tape. There's no other Fred Degal tape, so that's it. So they were talking. I wonder why there's no endings of any of these tapes. That's very strange that we don't get endings. Some of them are like not even audible. And so real quick, Jack Myers, where I'm doing the Mr. Barlow tape next Wednesday with a viewer of the show named John Catalano. So Barlow's happening next week. And anyway,
About the length of the audio tapes, I used to audio tape a lot. It's very strange. They were either 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or 2 hours. And these all are cutting off at 40 something minutes unless they have special types of taping.
maybe they had reel to reel or something.
And then they transferred it to audio. Well, yeah, it could be reel to reel.
Right. But so anyway, we would like so people are saying there should be part 2 of the tape. We're done with the Degal tape. That's it, guys. We finished all there is to do with Degal. So let's recap, Eric, for the audience, some of the contradictions. I'll name one and then you name another. Well, we have her saying that he killed the dog, and he is saying that she killed the dog.
Mm-hmm.
What was the contradiction that you noticed?
Well, the big contradiction is that she said he was supposed to be taking the dogs for walks, looking after them because they were ill. She and we think her husband, Jim Faulkner, had been injured. So he was supposed to be looking after the dogs, but he seems to not have been looking after the dogs, doesn't care about them. He doesn't mention the dog's eyes being out of the head. Oh, she also said that the dog's eyes were found in another room.
Right.
So that means it's almost like a killer these serial killers who murder people and somehow they move things to another room or whatever.
Not necessarily. Again, and I don't want to steal too much of Lorenzo's thunder, but Codella backed this up too in his book Alphaville. If you hit something, or I should say, some living creature with eyeballs, if you hit them hard enough in the head, their eyes will pop out.
So the dog was hit in the head in another room and then went into the bathroom or into that small room to hide away?
Good point.
And where was the blood in the other room? She found the eyes, but she doesn't mention blood.
There's some issues here with this story. Somebody is not telling the truth in this story. And I am not going to say who, because I don't know who, but we're just being yentas here, listening to the contradictions. Then we have the contradiction of her saying that he was outside when when Harvey was shot. He said he was inside. That's a contradiction. And then we also have the contradiction of her seeing him in the car with Berkowitz.
And he says, I never met the guy.
I never met the man. And then we have the contradiction of him saying Michael was gay and couldn't drive, and her saying that he was a Don Juan. And of course, we know that Michael drove. But listen, maybe Michael didn't drive all that much. Maybe he was an inexperienced driver. Maybe that would explain why he ran off the road that night. Not saying, I'm just spitballing here.
She says that he fell asleep, I think, at the wheel. He was overtired. I believe she said that.
Right. I think Book Club Warrior is right overall here when he says neither is being totally truthful. I think
there is something missing. It's almost as if each one is covering something up where I've got to put him there, I've got to put her there,
right,
because over here something took place.
But the thing that we always, as Son of Sam researchers, have to always remember is that we got to bring it back to the Son of Sam crimes. The dogs in the warehouse in New Rochelle are interesting. The dog shooting of Harvey Carr are interesting, and all that kind of stuff. But my main concern out of this interview is, was this guy actually seen in the car with David Berkowitz or not? That's the nut meat for me as a Son of Sam researcher, because that's the only place in this whole story where Degal and Berkowitz are together.
And also the timeline of when the $1,000 is spoken about. If he did the work in New Rochelle if I understood correctly, because they don't speak well, these people, in explaining things. If he did the work at New Rochelle at the warehouse,
No, the New Rochelle warehouse was strictly the dogs. That was it. Had nothing to
was
do
it
with
after
any.
Berkowitz's arrest?
I think so, but I'm not sure. I mean, that's part of the
Yeah,
issue here with the
if
timeline.
it's after Berkowitz's arrest, or if it's after he worked, did he do that job before he did the car house?
We don't know. Book club's bringing some good points up here.
Yeah, Debbie, I know it wasn't a warehouse, but they describe it that, and then he describes it as like a storefront.
Yeah, let's not get too worried, guys, about these semantics over warehouse versus storefront. Ultimately, it doesn't mean much towards our story. And, it's this kind of stuff where, like, you said warehouse, no, storefront, warehouse. And meanwhile, we're arguing over something that doesn't matter. So let's not worry about warehouses versus storefront.
We need the years that the work was done. We know more or less because it's when Harvey was killed, but I would like to know where the other job was done in New Rochelle. What's the year? What's the time?
Well, the dog killing in New Rochelle, exactly. So we need to find out when that dog killing occurred, and
There is
we need
something wrong there. I have to be very
because
clear.
yeah,
They didn't
because
call the cops, neither one.
that doesn't surprise me. But the issue is with this dog killing that it only becomes significant to me if it relates back to Son of Sam, and it can only relate back to Son of Sam if David Berkowitz had something to do with the dog killing. David Berkowitz could only have had something to do with that dog killing if it took place, one, before his arrest, and number two, if he knew Fred Degal, right?
Why would David
Or
Berkowitz
Wheat Carr or Jim Faulkner, any one of those three.
And why would David Berkowitz decide to club the dog or crush its head and use pliers to pull the teeth out
To get back at somebody
instead of using a gun?
Right. And why would he even be there in the first place to get back at somebody that, is his friend because he's supposed to know Degal? So there's something weird there.
Teeth on the floor.
That could have just been, again, from the blow to the head.
No, but did they find the teeth?
I don't know. But Franz brings up a point here. Both are lying. Fred more than Wheat. I think Wheat's lies are. Let me just put it this way. I think both are lying too. You have to ask yourself as a researcher, which one is lying worse and which lies are worse. And the answer to that is I really don't know, because she's accusing him of being a part and parcel with David Berkowitz, which is pretty serious. She's accusing him of killing the dog. He's accusing her of killing the dog.
After he denies that she would never do that.
Well, again, there's a question with that, whether he was answering that exact question. So we have to take that out of the story for now. We have to go back to the transcript and figure out exactly which question he was answering. But overall, I would say that Fred comes out worse than Wheat in this, in my opinion. And but other than that, I'm just going to leave it for the audience to decide, because who am I to say? I wasn't there. I wasn't friends with Wheat or with Fred. I don't know which one is telling the truth. So therefore, all I can do is present the information to you guys, and you guys can have fun discussing it amongst yourselves. Either way, I'm sorry. Huh? I'm sorry, Eric, what'd you say?
I wish somebody would call in and join us.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? There's 122 people now watching. You guys now all of a sudden the cat's got your tongue? What's going on over here? Jack Myers. Now all of a sudden you don't want to talk? What's going on over here? So, but again, this only interests me vis-a-vis Son of Sam, and the only thing in this entire interview that interested me as a Son of Sam researcher was that one bit. Was Fred Degal in the car with David Berkowitz? Because if Fred Degal was in the car with David Berkowitz, then it takes on a whole new tenor, and there we have our potential accomplice for Neto, and potentially an accomplice for some of the shootings too, because this guy clearly knew firearms. He was saying, get me a shotgun, and he knew about the 22 versus the 45 caliber. So I think Degal's an interesting person that needs more research done on him. What do you think?
I most definitely do. I think he's a major personage. Major.
Right, I think so too. So Eric, listen, we're getting on 2 hours. Why don't you say you're
still alive?
He is still alive, I believe. So Eric, we did great today, but I want to wrap it up. So why don't you give your final conclusions and say goodbye to the audience?
My final conclusion is that I wish I could have Degal and Wheat on at the same time. At the same time with us.
I agree. Me too.
I
That would
mean,
be
I wish
great.
Wheat would. I'm not challenging Wheat because I've respected the lady. I don't like the way he spoke about her. You know, he seems to be almost what he claims Wheat would think about him. He seems to be the guy that might have actually been shunned, and therefore he has to put her down.
Right. Yeah. Something in this whole thing, something definitely strikes me much weirder and stranger about Fred than about Wheat for
But he
sure.
does answer Lifa's question, and he does answer in the first part of his tape. He is asked by Lifer, and he said, "No, she wouldn't have done that. No, not her."
So you're sure that he's answering it in that context?
Well, I had reread it back, and you know, I go blind after a while, going back and forth, but I'm sure of that. I'm
Well,
sure.
don't be too sure. Let's what I'll do is I'll put that up on my Twitter, but let's get so no one's calling in. So Eric, you want to say goodbye cuz I want to take it on out and I want to
Well, I got to say goodbye. I thought many people would want to come in and join us, but they're not. I thought,
maybe we're just doing too many shows.
no, no, no. There's a lot of people here. I don't think people could ever be fed up with us. So when are you on again?
Well, I'm doing another show on Sunday.
What
In
time?
fact, let me take you out so I can make the announcements. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah, I can still hear you. You could
All
take
right,
me out.
cool. All right,
I'll
so
stay with you.
Eric, stick around. So I'll say goodbye to you off the air. All right.
Okay, God bless you. God bless everybody, and please contribute something.
Thank you very much, Eric. You did great today. Just
Thank
hang out.
you.
I'll be back with you in a minute. So yes, everybody. He said, she said. Yeah, right, said Fred. This was a great show. I love this type of stuff. We just listen to the people's words and we analyze. Again, this wasn't really a show to come up with conclusions or to make huge statements about truth and fact and falsehoods. The simple fact is we don't know. We are getting again in these reports stories that we never heard of for sure, right? Where was Fred Degal in the Ultimate Evil? How come Fred Degal was not in the Ultimate Evil? His name, even a pseudonym, nothing, right? 22 Book Club Warrior said before something very that made sense. Maury couldn't name him because then it would blow the cult theory to thesis. I mean, the cult thesis, it would blow it up. Sorry, I'm losing it, guys. Almost 4 straight days of shows. I need a break. But on that end, we are not going to be back until Sunday night, and I mean that. I'm preparing a show for Monday, which is what I'm going to be spending the next 3 days on. But Sunday night, we have an absolute blast. Whereas today, we couldn't get definitive answers because we didn't have the first persons here. We didn't have Wheat with us. We didn't have Fred with us. And Eric and I are very far removed from these situations and can't comment with real authority. On Sunday, that all changes. On Sunday, and it's going to be Manny Sunday starting at 6:00, and the links are up on my Twitter. On Sunday, we are going to start part 1 of Patrick O'Shaughnessy's tapes. I believe he has 3 tapes to get through. And we are doing it with John Rinciari, former YPD, and Jim Fay. And why are we doing it with them? Because, well, John Rinciari's name is mentioned in the Patrick O'Shaughnessy tape. These guys know Patrick O'Shaughnessy. These guys will be able to tell you in great detail backstory to what he's talking about on these tapes. They have intimate knowledge of what he's saying. And so this is going to be a killer show in terms of analysis of these tapes. You're never going to get this from any other Son of Sam show. So Sunday night will be Jim Fay and John Rinciari comment on the Patrick O'Shaughnessy tapes. John Comparetto has told us that he might be able to make it on that show. So we might get these 3 guys back. And again, that's history. We're going to be listening to this Patrick O'Shaughnessy tape with 3 of Berkowitz's friends and acquaintances from the police auxiliary days. And these are the people we want to talk to now, not Heinrich LaVerge from the process, and not all this stupid stuff that Maury Terry brought up. It was Joaquin Goncarlo with the yellow Volkswagen. Yeah, meanwhile, Joaquin Goncarlo is an itinerant day laborer, doesn't speak English, church-going guy, salt of the earth, never had anything to do with any of this. And there Maury is in his Queen's DA tape, blaming the yellow Volkswagen on Joaquin Goncarlo. So we have a lot of historical rights to wrong. We have a lot of history to fill in the blanks of. We have a lot of context to put into focus for you. And also Monday, to that end, I came up with this today. So there's some issues in the Neto story. Contradictions. There's contradictions between what the Neto family told me on tape and what is in a police report about the Neto story. And so as an honest, objective researcher who is not interested in ego, but is interested in the case, I may end up with some egg on my face on Monday. Won't that be fun for you guys? We're going to examine the Neto contradictions on Monday, and I am putting together an amazing blockbuster show for you on that. We're going to reintroduce some of the Neto footage from the old days. We're going to show you what they said. We're going to show you what the police reports say. And we're really, really going to deal with this issue of the Neto contradictions. Why? Because I'm the person that brought up the Netos to the Son of Sam community in the first place. Yeah, I know they were brought up in the 70s, but it was an afterthought. I'm the one that introduced this story to the world, and it's bearing out that Berkowitz was obsessed with 18 Wicker Street. In fact, if Berkowitz had obsessed over Rocket as opposed to Harvey, we would have never heard of the Carr family at all in this, because all of Berkowitz's writings are all about 18 Wicker Street, the horror hotel, the House of Horrors, the Wicker Street cult at 18 Wicker Street. So Neto is still important. I'm hoping to clear up these contradictions. I do have an email out to Sylvia Neto. Hopefully we'll get her on for Monday. Don't expect a miracle there, okay? But hopefully we'll get her on, or at least I'll speak to her on the phone and get her explanation. And I've already spoken to a few cops about this police report from the 1970s about the Netos, and I've gotten some of their opinions as well. Ultimately, though, my friends, whatever happens on Monday with this Neto contradictions, I don't think it really matters. Either way, I think I come out smelling like a rose. So we're going to have some fun on Monday. It's going to be great. And then on next Wednesday, I am doing a show with a viewer, a fan of the show, and also a friend of mine who has given me information over the past year. Good stuff, too. I believe he was the person that gave me the information, the police report about Berkowitz looking for Wheat Carr in the motorcycle club, a gentleman named John Catalano. And we are going to analyze the Mr. Barlow tape, the eyewitness from Virginia Voskerichian, because just like almost every other tape that we have dealt with in this Queens DA dump that we have been dealing with for the last week and a half, and we're going to be dealing with for the next few weeks, the Virginia Voskerichian tape tells an entirely different story from the Ultimate Evil as well. All right, guys. Well, listen. This was an intense week, and we ain't stopping, guys. Next week is going to be just as intense. The shows are balls to the wall. We are in the middle of the golden age. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.